We are here in Atlanta, Georgia, American top team, Team Lima, with the future featherweight champion of bare-knuckle, Nathan the Ripper Rivera.
Absolutely, man. Thank you for having me.
Nathan, who gave you the nickname?
The nickname came from my very first boxing coach. He was the guy who was in my corner for my very first fight as a boxer. He's from Red Hook, New York, and he said he liked how the Reaper Rivera sounded. So that's who gave it to me. I hated the name at first. I didn't like it, and then it kind of grew on me. Everyone started calling me the Reaper. Then BKFC introduces me as the Reaper, so it kind of stuck.
Nathan, for those who may not know you yet, how did your journey in combat sports begin?
Yeah, man. So my first fight ever was actually against a teammate here, which was Mike Bardsley, and that was in the NFC. That was in 2020. I had my first MMA fight. I took a couple MMA fights. I switched gyms. I went to a primarily boxing gym. I had a couple of amateur boxing fights, and I would take those in between my MMA fights. Then I came over to Team Lima. Had 2 more fights as an amateur. Had 2 quick knockouts with Coach Brantley in my corner. We went pro. I had 1 MMA fight, and then I was approached by BKFC to get on one of their cards. And after I did that, it was kind of over. I kind of fell in love.
What made you decide to compete in bare-knuckle fighting, especially?
The decision to fight for bare-knuckle, originally the first time, it was kind of just to get a good payday. You know, I had 1 fight in MMA, and I was thinking to myself, you know what, let's just go get a good payday. It took me a while to convince Brantley. He was not very fond of the idea. About a week later, he came around to it. So that's kind of what got me in the door. And then once I got in the door, I kind of fell in love with the product. I fell in love with the promotion itself, like all of the people there. So I got another one, and then we started saying to ourselves, oh wow, we could probably become world champion here. So that's kind of what started it off, and you know, we're in a very different place now.
How do you describe your fighting style in just few words?
I would say aggressive, I would say accurate, and I would say slick, are a couple words that I would use to describe my fighting style.
You're currently number 4. How does it feel be among the top fighters at the bare-knuckle?
It feels good. It feels really good. I still feel like I have so much to prove. I've been asking for guys in the top 5 for a long time, and now I'm in the top 5. I want to be number 1. I want to be with the belt. So whoever I have to fight, whoever I have to prove myself against to get there is what I'm willing to do.
Do people recognize you right now?
Sometimes they do. And it kind of trips me out. Like, I'll go to the grocery store with my wife, and someone will see me, and I don't know who they are, and they'll say, like, Nathan, man, keep putting on for Georgia, man. Good job. We're all rooting for you. And I'm thinking to myself, is he talking to me? You know what I mean? It's kind of funny. So it happens sometimes. It still catches me off guard.
What does this ranking mean to you personally?
Man, it means a lot. To be the top 5 of the most exciting combat sport in the world in my weight class, it's something that I've dreamt about, you know, since I started this sport. I want to be a world champion, you know, and to be ranked number 4, it kind of shows me that I'm on the right path. You know, I can keep climbing. I see what's next. So it really does mean a lot to me. It means that all my hard work, I have something to show for it now, you know.
In bare-knuckle fighting, what do you find most challenging compared to boxing or MMA, you know, the fighting without the gloves?
Yeah, I mean, so it's a little bit different. It's very similar to MMA when it comes to the fist size, right? A 4-ounce glove is not a lot on the fist. So I don't see a ton of differences with the blocking. Coming from boxing, there's definitely a lot of differences, right? You can't use the gloves to block. And kind of like in MMA, you can't really use your gloves to block because there's not much there. So there is a heavy emphasis on head movement, on parrying the punches, on a lot of footwork. You can't really rely on using any additional cover to block any of those shots.
What kind of injuries are most common in the bare-knuckle, and how do you deal with them?
Yeah, so I mean, there's definitely more superficial injuries in bare-knuckle, right? More cuts. Sometimes your hands get a little bit more banged up. There's less wrist injuries in bare-knuckle than there is in boxing and MMA because they do a really, really great job of wrapping your hands, right? They wrap from, you know, right around here all the way up to about an inch under your knuckles. So it's really sturdy wrap. They almost use a whole roll of tape. So your wrists are very well protected. After the fight, my hands are a little bit banged up. They're a little bit swollen, and the best way that I combat that is I go to Barber Orthopedics. I go see Scott and Brad, and they take care of my hands. They give me PRP shots, any kind of shots that I need, any kind of X-ray, MRI. They're always taking care of me, and usually I'm back to training pretty quickly.
Are there any specific techniques or defensive moves because you're fighting with the bare knuckle?
Yeah, absolutely. Like we said, there's not a lot on the hand to block, right? So your footwork and your head movement are king in this game. And not even because of the shot could put you out. If you take a bad shot and it happens to hit your eye and it gets around your eye, the doctor could stop the fight. So footwork is a heavy emphasis, and luckily I came into bare knuckle with a big emphasis on footwork, on head movement. I didn't really fight with my face before. I don't do it now, so it's helping me out in the game that we're in.
How important is precision compared to power when throwing the punches in bare knuckle?
That's super important, right? Especially for bare knuckle. My last fight, my hands took the worst beating they've ever taken, and it's because I was throwing body shots at my last opponent, and he kept on blocking with his elbows, and maybe I was winging him a little wild, and I wasn't really dialed in perfectly on my accuracy, and I would hit his elbows all the time, and it hurt my hands more than anything. Sometimes if a guy ducks his head and I end up punching him on the crown of his head, it's a big deal. With gloves on, it's not a big deal, right? But with you have no gloves on, the head is a whole lot harder than the face and the jaw, right? So precision is so much more important, in my opinion, than power, because you don't have anything to back it up, right? In boxing, you see a lot of guys, if they have a really tight guard, they'll hit their arms to try to lower their hands. In bare knuckle, you can't really do that, because if you hit their arms enough, you're gonna feel it.
How does fighting without gloves change your footwork and the distance management?
So depending on what ring we're in, it can change a lot, right? A lot depends on how small of a size. So we usually fight on the numbered cards on the 24-foot ring, which it's pretty big. The ring that we have here in Team Lima, I think, is 20 foot. And then if we fight on like a fight night or a smaller card, it's a 16-foot ring. So it's very small. So footwork definitely changes a little bit when we're in that big ring. The small ring, it's like a phone booth. You have maybe one step forward, and then bare knuckle, they start you, I think it's 3 feet apart. So you're right on your part. You're right in front of your opponent. There's 2 lines on the ground, and they say toe the line, and you don't start in your corner. You start right in front of them. So in the big ring, it's not a big deal. In the small ring, it's a little bit of a change in the game.
Because here at the practice, I see you all the time. You keep your distance. You fight like a long range.
Yeah, absolutely. And I was blessed with long arms, so I try to use those to my benefit. I can fight on the inside. I enjoy fighting on the inside, but Coach Brantley says you leave the same way you came here, which is no scratches, no bruises, no cuts. So if I can use my range and keep them on the outside and knock them out from there, then I'll do that. Because
so many guys over here, they have like problems to reach you during the sparring sessions.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And luckily, we have the best facility here. We have a lot of mats, we have cages, we have rings, we have everything we need to be successful. So shout out to all of the shorter guys that give me rounds. Even though we're in the same weight class, if they're a little bit shorter and their arms are shorter, I know it's a whole different game. So, we're really blessed here at Team Lima to have great partners and a great facility.
What goes through your mind in those first seconds after the bell rings?
Man, I got a lot going on in my head, and then it's so funny. After the bell rings, it all goes away. So what's on my mind after the bell rings is just the match itself, just the fight. The hardest part is getting to that bell. When you're sitting in the back, when you're getting your hands wrapped, when you're walking down the ramp to the ring, when they're announcing you. All of those things are kind of stressful, right? But as soon as I get in there and as soon as that bell rings, I feel at home. We spar on Saturdays, we spar on Mondays. This is all I do. This is all I really know. So I feel comfortable in the fight. So once the bell rings, I feel like I'm at home.
How do you stay calm and composed in such a brutal environment in a cage?
Man, this game is different. This game is different than MMA. Let's say that you get knocked down in MMA, you're getting hit. You have to work back up to your feet. In bare knuckle, it's very brutal, but at the same time, if you're getting overwhelmed or you are in a position where you feel like you might get knocked out or something like that, you can take a knee. That's like one thing that a lot of fighters, when they transition to bare knuckle, they're not used to. That, you know, this is a sport, this is a game, right? We're playing the game here. So managing that time, right? It's 2-minute rounds, so managing that time is something that helps me, knowing, okay, I only got about 60 seconds left, right? But just going through the fire in here with these guys, going through the fire in every sparring session, it kind of helps me prepare for the fight itself.
What advice would you give to fighters who want to transition from MMA or boxing to the bare knuckle fighting?
Man, it's different. The biggest thing that I would say that I had to get adjusted to was the time, right? 2-minute rounds. And really, really working on your footwork and your head movement. Like, those two aspects of the game are so key in this sport that we're doing. It's new, you know, it's only about 7 years old, like BKFC itself. So we're kind of learning as we go, but from what I found in my short career here, you know, about 2 years, is footwork and head movement are king.
You are undefeated with 4-0. What's the key behind your success so far?
Man, the key so far has been, you know, doing what we've been doing. You know, I came to Team Lima. Since I've been here, I've been 6-1. And the only loss was a split decision. And so we have a very high success rate here, right? Me, Coach Brandley, Reese in my corner, all of the coaches here. The best thing that I've done for my career is find out like that team that really jives together and works together, right? That I really feel supported by. And then we put the work in, you know, every day. It doesn't matter if there is a fight scheduled, if I'm out of camp, if I'm in camp, I train the same way, right? My training schedule does not change when I have a fight booked. I do this year round. Okay. Yeah, so I would say, you know, overall, all of the things, the key to my success has been the close-knit group of people that support me.
Which of those 4 fights was the toughest one?
Without a doubt, the toughest fight I think I've ever had in my entire career, even outside of BKFC, was Alex Castro. He came into that fight. He was 10 wins, 9 losses in MMA, so he had a very, very long MMA record. You know, I only have 1 fight in MMA. He had 2 fights in BKFC, and he was tough. He was really tough. I dropped him 3 times. He took a shot good. He gave it back. He really pressured me well. He did a lot of good things to try to get me off my game. And luckily, we were able to come out victorious against him. But that was probably my toughest fight to date.
How do you handle the pressure going through each fight, knowing your perfect record is on the line?
You know, I started my amateur career as 0-2. I lost my first 2 fights, and it really changed who I was as a person. It made me really look in the mirror and really self-evaluate who I was. So, you know, the pressure, I love the pressure because I think it makes me perform better. And in my head, I'll always be that 0-2 fighter that needs to prove himself. So I don't really see it as an undefeated. In my head, I still need to show every single time I go out there. I need to show why I'm the best.
What do you think separates good fighter from great fighters in the bare knuckle?
You know, the biggest thing that separates the good fighters from the great fighters in bare knuckle is realizing that we are fighting in BKFC. It's realizing that this is not MMA fight with no gloves. This is not a boxing fight with no gloves. The fighters who are great in this sport, they realize that this is its own sport, and they train specifically for that. You know, they're not just playing around and like, oh, I'm going to take off the gloves and fight here, but really I'm a boxer. You know, the fighters who are great in the sport, they devote their time to being a bare knuckle fighter. That's their sole goal. It's not a little side quest where they're going to go and get a good chunk of money. It's not that. It's the fighters that want to be great at this and that are great at this, they take this as their career. You know, this is the priority.
How does your training camp of bare knuckle differs from the traditional MMA or boxing?
Yeah, man, I did my first bare knuckle fight, and I didn't really pick back up I did my first bare knuckle fight, and I did not go into another jiu-jitsu class since. I kind of fell in love with it, and luckily bare knuckle I think it's more similar to MMA than it is to boxing. Mm-hmm. You know, as crazy as that sounds, the smaller gloves, the fighting style, the capability to clinch on somebody's head and pull their neck down, all of those things MMA fighters do very well. So what I've done is I've just supplemented all of my training from boxing, and I've gone into the Muay Thai classes, and I do boxing. Junior is one of my best training partners. He lets me, modify the techniques a little bit so that they're boxing friendly. And then sparring, I just spar with the MMA guys, and I do boxing rounds, and they're kind enough to let me do boxing rounds with them. And they use the small gloves, so I get a really, really good feel for bare knuckle.
What does typical week of training looks like for you?
Yeah, man, my week, it's, like we said, it's the same in camp or out of camp. Monday is sparring. I do a lot of solo work, so I do a lot of like my conditioning by myself. I do a lot of shadow boxing, a lot of pads, a lot of drills with the teammates. But Monday sparring. Tuesday I do class with Coach Brantley, and I do my bike sprints or sprints outside on the hills. Wednesday I have pads with Coach Brantley, and then I do my stationary bike work upstairs. I do my sauna, my recovery. Thursday is usually my rest and recovery day. That's the day that me and my wife go out to dinner. That's like our date night. So I usually rest on that day. Friday I do my road work, so I'll run 6-7 miles, and then Saturday is sparring again, and then Sunday is again some more running, and then we repeat.
Oh, that's why we don't see you in Thursdays over here.
That's it. Yeah, okay. Thursday is my only off day, and I think I was scared to, I don't want to miss any time off the gym. And what I realized that balance really helped me, because when I came back to the gym on Saturday from missing the gym, I was so hungry to get after it. I don't experience burnout. It's so good to spend time with my wife. She supports me so much in this sport that it's the least that I could do is skip one night of practice to hang out with her.
How much do you focus your mental preparation compared to physical training?
A lot of my training is mental. I'm one of those fighters that sometimes my mind is my own worst enemy. It can be if I don't leave it checked, right? Like fear, anxiety, some of that stuff can really affect me. So for me, like positive reinforcement is big, and it's such a blessing that we have Coach Brantley in here. He's really good about that, is encouraging me and getting me out of my head sometimes. So the mental side for me it's pretty heavy. I would say as much as I train the physical, I train the mental.
Who are the key people in your corner that you rely on most?
In my corner in the fight, in my corner in life, some of the most important people to me that really help me out are Coach Brantley. He's probably my number one as far as in my physical corner, right? And then as far as people in my corner, is my wife Brianna, it's my teammate Reese Watkins, and then it's all the people here at Team Lima, right? Everybody here, all my teammates, all of my coaches here, Coach Diego, all of these people they might not be in my physical corner, but they're always in my corner in training and in life.
Being number 4 in the rankings, is there anyone specific that you would like to fight next?
Man, I want to fight the number 1 guy, right? We have the champ, and then we got the number 1 guy, and then we have all of the top 5. And so I'm in the top 4. I'd really love to fight Edgar Plazaola. I think he's 6-0, 6 finishes, or maybe 5 finishes, but he's the number 1 contender. I've wanted to fight him for a long time. Another guy I would love to fight is Gary Fox. He is the UK world champion, and that would be a great name to get under my belt. And then, of course, I'd love to fight the champ, right? I would love to fight Kai Stewart, but I don't mind taking a couple hard fights before I get there as well. I want to prove to not only myself, but to the company, to the fans, that I haven't cut any corners, and I want to take out all of the hard people in front of me.
What are your personal goals for the next 12 months in the bare-knuckle?
Yeah, some of my personal goals for the next 12 months in BKFC. So right now we are in, almost November. By November of 2026, I'd love to do this interview again with the belt hanging right here. That's of course one of my goals. But even more so than the belt, one of my goals is to be a full-time fighter. I work 40 hours a week right now. I leave the house around 7. I don't get back until about 8 or 9, and it's a lot. It's a lot for me, it's a lot for my wife. I would like to start a family soon. So some of the personal goals is to have a belt around my shoulder, to be a full-time fighter so I can spend that time with my family. And then it's also to have a couple kids of my own and really start that next chapter in my life.
Do you see yourself competing internationally in the future?
Yeah, absolutely. I don't want to compete with, I don't want to fight for another promotion. I want to be with the BKFC, and, I got my passport ready. I was supposed to fight a guy out in Canada, which would have been my first international card 2 weeks into the 2 weeks from the fight. He had to pull out, unfortunately. But I'm itching to get overseas and fight. I would love to fight in the Philippines. I would love to fight in Italy or something cool like that. But until that time comes, I'm more than happy knocking people out here stateside.
Because the big fights they're overseas, and so far you fight in the US, right?
That's it. Yeah, only the U.S. Yep, and they got international shows all the time. Australia, Italy. They go to Spain. They go to the UK all the time. So to get on one of those cards, man, it would be awesome. It would be a dream come true.
How excited you see the Conor in the future?
Oh, I can't wait. I know I'm probably going to meet him, in the next couple of months, and I think it's going to be really awesome. I think he's going to really take to me because the same fire that he has for the fight game is the same fire that's inside me. So I think it'd be awesome to meet him.
Who inspired you most in the combat sports?
Man, I grew up watching. I think the first introduction I had to MMA was Jose Aldo. So I grew up watching Jose Aldo. I thought he was so cool. I of course grew up watching Manny Pacquiao. Right, my dad's from the Philippines, so he's a huge inspiration to me, to a lot of the Filipino fighters, especially to the boxers, the Filipino boxers. But some of the biggest inspirations, Douglas Lima was one of them. I used to watch his fights when I was younger. And it's kind of cool now training with some of these guys. I used to watch Diego Lima on The Ultimate Fighter. I thought it was so cool that he was from the same state as me, But yeah, one of the biggest inspirations was Jose Aldo when I was growing up.
How was fighting change your life outside of the ring?
Yeah, fighting has really shaped who I am. I started training when I was young. I had my first fight when I was 22. When I was 22 years old, I don't really think I know who I was as a person, So I kind of grew up and found out who I am through this sport. And from what I found is that I really like the man that I am when I'm training consistently, when I'm fighting, and it's because I'm using my discipline, right? I'm holding myself to a higher standard, in here, of course, but that translates outside. I want to be a better husband, a better son, a better friend, a better, everything, because I'm realizing the process to get good at something is the same. You put time in, you fix your errors, you're honest with yourself, and that's all things we have to do here in the gym to be a good fighter. We have to be honest with ourselves. We have to put in the time. We have to take criticism well. We have to listen to people who we trust, right? So all of those things I've learned in here, they translate very well to the outside world.
What's the biggest lesson you've learned from this sport so far?
Man, the biggest lesson I've learned fighting for BKFC and just fighting in general is that it's very important to build yourself as a brand, not just in the ring, right? Bringing who you are outside the ring to the ring is really important. I think that's what people can really connect with you on, right? People can see fake. People can see unauthentic. So just what I've learned is be yourself. If people love you, they love you for you. So don't be somebody else when the lights cut on. Just be yourself. And I think that's why so many people back me, is because I'm a regular guy. I work a full-time job just like you, just like everybody else. And I'm just chasing this dream of becoming world champion.
How do you keep your motivation high between the fights?
Man, to be honest with you, my motivation is low most of the time, especially after a hard week of training. You don't want to come in here, and that's the beautiful thing about this sport, is that when motivation leaves you, right, you have to push through, and that's where you really figure out who you are. We come in here week after week, and sometimes we don't want to come in here. Today, I'm tired, my body's broken down, I'm hungry, I'm cutting weight, and I don't want to be here really. I would love to be at home spending time with my wife, eating a big bowl of pasta or something like that, but when the motivation leaves, that's when your discipline comes into play. So when the motivation is gone, discipline takes over.
What would you say to young fighters who dream of making it to the bare-knuckle?
Oh man, the biggest thing I would say is find that group of people that we talked about that care about you, and they'll push you in the right direction. It could be a good friend, it could be a coach, it could be just anyone in your life that really supports you. Keep those people close, because that, no matter what you want to do in this world, if it's bare knuckle, if it's UFC, if it's anything, keep those people close to you, because they'll push you to where you need to be.
Any message you want to send to your fans and the bare knuckle community?
Yeah, man. I think the fans have really taken to me. I've only been in this sport for about 2 years. I'm 4-0. I've only had 4 fights. But I think I've got a lot of good feedback from the people who watch my fights. I try to put on these exciting fights. So really what I'd like to say to them is just thank you for watching. We put so much time into our craft. And when we go fight, we have 10 minutes to really show what we do and what we love. So to have people there to spend money to come watch me fight, it's a dream come true. To have my loved ones there, you know, it's like a painter going to an art show and showing off his painting that he put hours and hours and hours into. That's what it's like when people come to my fight and they get to see, you know, a reflection of all of the hard work that I've put in, you know, day in and day out.